year ago, America fell in love with a singing janitor from Terre Haute.
Oh, Richard Goodall won, you might remember, America's Got Talent.
Everyday routines, waiting for the right opportunity. Richard Goodall's story is one of those rare moments. For years, he wasn't a celebrity, a recording artist, or a television personality. He was simply the friendly school custodian who greeted students with a smile every morning while humming classic songs as he worked. Few could have imagined that this humble man would eventually stand on one of the biggest stages in America and inspire millions. When audiences first saw Richard Goodall on America's Got Talent, they noticed his humble personality long before they heard his voice. He walked onto the stage looking nervous, almost overwhelmed by the size of the theater and the attention focused on him. Unlike performers who arrived with flashy costumes or dramatic introductions, Richard carried himself like someone who had spent his life working hard behind the scenes. That authenticity immediately connected with both the judges and the audience. But what many viewers didn't realize was that Richard's journey had taken decades. His success wasn't the result of one lucky audition. It was built on years of perseverance, quiet dedication, and an unwavering love for music. Long before television cameras ever found him, singing had been an important part of his life. Whether performing at local events, singing in church, enjoying karaoke nights, or entertaining friends, music was always present. Yet he never expected it to become his career. For more than 2 decades, Richard worked as a custodian in Indiana. Every day followed a familiar routine. He cleaned classrooms, maintained hallways, and helped create a welcoming environment for students and teachers. To many people, it may have looked like an ordinary job, but Richard approached it with pride. Those who worked alongside him often described him as cheerful, dependable, and someone who genuinely cared about the people around him. One of the most remarkable aspects of Richard's story is how unexpectedly everything changed. It wasn't a talent scout searching for the next big star or a music executive offering him a contract. Instead, it began with a simple cell phone recording. A student captured Richard singing while working at school and shared the video online. There were no expensive cameras, no special effects, and no carefully planned marketing campaign. It was simply an honest moment of a man singing because he loved music. That short video quickly spread across social media. Thousands of people watched it, then hundreds of thousands, and eventually millions. Viewers weren't just impressed by Richard's powerful voice, they were touched by the joy and sincerity he displayed while performing. His performance reminded people that extraordinary talent can often be found in the most unexpected places. The viral attention opened doors Richard never imagined. Suddenly, people across the country were encouraging him to audition for America's Got Talent. Many believed he deserved the opportunity to perform before a much larger audience. For Richard, however, the idea wasn't as simple as it seemed. Standing on a national stage in front of millions of viewers is intimidating for anyone, especially someone who had spent most of his life outside the spotlight. Even before his AGT appearance, Richard had experienced disappointment. Like countless aspiring singers, he explored opportunities to share his talent, but success didn't come overnight. Those setbacks could have convinced him to stop pursuing music altogether. Instead, they strengthened his appreciation for every chance he received to sing, no matter how small the audience. When the invitation finally arrived, Richard faced a choice. He could remain within the comfort of the life he had always known, or he could take a leap into the unknown. It wasn't simply about entering a television competition. It meant leaving behind familiar routines, traveling farther than he had before, and placing himself in front of judges whose opinions could change the course of his future. That decision required courage. By the time Richard stepped onto the AGT stage, he wasn't trying to become famous overnight. He simply wanted to share the gift that had been part of his life for decades. As the music began, his nervousness gradually disappeared. His voice filled the theater with emotion, and the audience quickly realized they were witnessing something special. The judges' reactions reflected what millions watching at home were feeling. Richard wasn't just singing notes accurately. He was telling a story through every lyric. His years of life experience, working hard, facing disappointment, celebrating small victories, and never giving up, could be heard in every performance. What happened next transformed his life forever. As the audience erupted into applause, one thing became clear. Richard Goodall represented something many people rarely see in modern entertainment. He wasn't built by social media trends or overnight celebrity culture. He represented perseverance. He reminded viewers that dreams don't come with expiration dates, and that success can arrive when least expected. Looking back today, many fans say they suspected there was something unique about Richard from the very beginning. It wasn't only his voice that made him stand out. It was his humility, gratitude, and genuine appreciation for every opportunity placed before him. And perhaps that's the biggest lesson from the opening chapter of his remarkable journey. Before the trophies, before the interviews, and before national recognition, Richard Goodall had already become successful in the ways that mattered most. He had earned the respect of his community, inspired the students who saw him every day, and remained true to himself despite years of working outside the spotlight. Little did anyone know, however, that his biggest challenges and some of the most emotional moments of his life were still ahead. Behind the applause was a personal story shaped by loss, resilience, unexpected discoveries, and a future that would prove even more extraordinary than his unforgettable audition. As Richard Goodall's audition continued to spread across television screens and social media, viewers weren't just talking about his incredible voice. They were asking a much deeper question. How had someone this talented remained virtually unknown for so many years? It was a question Richard himself had wondered more than once throughout his life. For decades, music had been a passion rather than a profession. While many aspiring singers moved to major cities chasing recording contracts or audition after audition, Richard took a different path. He chose stability, responsibility, and community. His career as a school custodian wasn't something he viewed as a backup plan. It was an honest living that allowed him to support himself while continuing to enjoy the thing he loved most, singing. That decision may not have made headlines, but it shaped the man America eventually came to know. Every morning before students filled the hallways, Richard was already hard at work. He prepared classrooms, cleaned common areas, and made sure the school was ready for another busy day. To some, those tasks might have seemed ordinary. To Richard, they were an opportunity to serve others. His coworkers often described him as dependable, cheerful, and always willing to help whenever someone needed a hand. What made him especially memorable, however, was the music. Students frequently heard him singing while he worked. Whether it was a classic rock anthem, a heartfelt ballad, or a favorite tune that brightened the morning, Richard never seemed embarrassed to let his voice fill the hallways. He wasn't performing for applause. He simply loved to sing. Ironically, that genuine love became the very thing that changed his life. The cell phone video that introduced Richard to millions wasn't carefully planned. It wasn't filmed for television or produced by a professional crew. It captured an authentic moment, a man enjoying music while doing his everyday job. In an era where much of the internet is carefully curated, that authenticity stood out immediately. People from every corner of the country began sharing the clip. Comments poured in from viewers saying they had goosebumps. Others wondered why someone with such a remarkable voice wasn't already recording albums or performing sold-out concerts. Many admitted the video restored a little of their faith that genuine talent could still be discovered naturally. For Richard, the tension felt almost surreal. One day, he was cleaning classrooms. The next, strangers recognized him from a video viewed millions of times online. Yet despite the growing attention, those closest to him noticed something important. He hadn't changed. Friends said Richard remained the same humble person they had always known. Fame hadn't inflated his ego or altered his priorities. He still enjoyed simple conversations, still appreciated his coworkers, and still treated everyone with kindness. That grounded attitude would become one of his greatest strengths as he entered the unpredictable world of television entertainment. When America's Got Talent producers eventually invited him to audition, Richard understood the opportunity could change everything. At the same time, he also recognized there were no guarantees. Every season introduces extraordinary performers, but only a handful advance through the competition. Instead of focusing on winning, Richard concentrated on delivering the best performance he could. That mindset helped calm his nerves. By the time he reached the AGT stage, years of singing at local events had taught him something valuable. Audiences respond to honesty far more than perfection. Technical ability matters, but emotional connection is what people remember. Richard leaned into that philosophy. As he sang, his performance wasn't built around flashy choreography or elaborate staging. It relied on sincerity. Every lyric reflected someone who had experienced life's victories and disappointments firsthand. The judges recognized that immediately. Their praise wasn't limited to his vocal ability. They repeatedly commented on his authenticity, an increasingly rare quality in an industry often dominated by image and spectacle. For viewers watching at home, Richard represented something refreshingly different. He reminded people that success isn't reserved only for those who discover fame early in life. Some dreams simply take longer to reach their destination. His journey also challenged another common misconception, that age determines opportunity. Many performers believe major breakthroughs become less likely as the years pass. Richard's experience suggested otherwise. Standing on one of television's biggest stages later in life, he demonstrated that talent doesn't disappear simply because someone grows older. If anything, life's experiences often deepen an artist's ability to connect emotionally with an audience. That message resonated with millions. Across social media, countless viewers shared stories of dreams they had nearly abandoned. Some talked about returning to college later in life. Others described launching businesses after retirement or rediscovering passions they had ignored for years. Richard had unknowingly become a symbol of perseverance. But while audiences celebrated his remarkable rise, they knew only part of the story. Behind every standing ovation stood years of private struggles that cameras couldn't fully capture. Like anyone else, Richard had experienced disappointment, personal loss, and moments when pursuing music seemed unrealistic. Those experiences didn't weaken his performances, they strengthened them. Listeners could hear genuine emotion because it came from lived experience rather than performance alone. As the competition progressed, Richard's confidence gradually grew. Each appearance revealed another layer of his personality. The nervous custodian who first stepped onto the stage slowly transformed into an artist who genuinely belonged there. Yet despite growing recognition, he remained deeply grateful. In interviews, Richard consistently thanked his supporters, his coworkers, his hometown, and everyone who encouraged him to take a chance. He rarely spoke about personal achievement without also acknowledging the people who believed in him along the way. That humility became one of the defining characteristics of his public image. It also explained why so many fans continued rooting for him throughout the competition. They weren't simply voting for an exceptional singer. They were supporting someone who represented resilience, kindness, and the belief that extraordinary opportunities can appear when they're least expected. As Richard advanced further into the competition, another chapter of his story began attracting attention, not because of fame or music, but because of the deeply personal experiences that had quietly shaped the man standing beneath the spotlight. Those emotional moments would reveal that his greatest victories weren't measured only by applause, but by the strength he found through life's most difficult seasons.